Hey guys, this is Game Advisor, and today we're going to be going over a bunch of tips to help you get started in 7 Days to Die. Now there is a bunch here that are mostly geared towards the beginner players, so if you are more experienced or even intermediate, some of these might not be super helpful to you, but stick around because some of the ones towards the end of the video definitely are going to be helpful no matter where you're at in your gameplay. Alrighty, so let's go ahead and get into this. First up, we have that you should be using the settings. Now, what we're talking about here isn't necessarily your graphical settings, those you can set to whatever you're comfortable to. We're talking about the settings before you create your world. You can change things like difficulty, zombie walking speed, you can change all sorts of different stuff, how quickly loot respawns. You can get all sorts of different things that will make your life easier or harder if that's something you want. So whether you're experienced or brand new to the game, these are definitely going to help you to be able to figure things out and set your world to be the way you want it to be. So if you're struggling with one aspect in particular, maybe the difficulty's too high, you could always just turn that down. Or maybe you feel like you're not leveling fast enough and you don't want to spend so much time doing that. Feel free to knock the XP multiplier up. Or maybe you know what, the game feels too easy for you, then you can make all the zombies sprint at all times. You know, there's tons of different things you can do that will change the game and create a new environment for you. So my first tip is, again, just going to be use the settings, change them to what is useful for you and how you want to play your game. Now, if you are new, I will just say I recommend you start out on the default settings, but that is what it is. Alrighty, so number 2 on our list is going to be Do the Intro Questline. Now, if you don't know what I'm talking about, once you boot into the game, up in the top right corner, you're going to see some objectives. You're going to want to go ahead and complete each of these. It takes about maybe 5 minutes to do all of them, including the final one. And if you're really good at this game, you could probably even knock it out in like 2 minutes if you get lucky on where the final quest spawns. But the reason we're doing this isn't necessarily for the XP or to learn the game. However, that's good if you've never played before. You know, tutorials are helpful, period. It's going to teach you some basic things that will help to get you started. But the main reason we want to do this is going to be because we get 4 skill points just for completing this. So that's going to get you moving in whatever skill trees you want. I always like to put one of my points into Pack Mule in order to get a little extra carry space, but that's just me. Everybody's a little different. The main goal here is that we're getting those 4 skill points and we don't have to go level up to get them, and we can get them all within about 5 minutes of starting the game. Okay, so moving on to number 3 on our list. This one's not really too complicated. It's very straightforward, and that's going to be go ahead and look for birds' nests. The reason we're going to be doing this is that every time we find a bird's nest, these bird's nests are going to have either an egg and some amount of feathers in them. Now, if you do get the egg, you can turn that into bacon and eggs with 5 raw meat, which is a great source of food when you're first starting out. Now, if you don't end up doing that, it's still a good source for the feathers if you want to go into archery, which is very useful early on. Even if you're not going into the agility tree and leveling up your archery or the perception, whichever one it is, it's still really nice to have all those feathers. Now, if you want to go the extra mile, you can take a hatchet to the bird's nests and break them, but keep in mind, after your spawn timer resets, which is usually default set to 30 days, it will not respawn with an egg in it or any feathers. It'll just be gone from the world. So if you do leave it on the ground, you can come back to it, usually within 30 days of in-game time, and go and pick up the loot from that bird's nest again. So I usually just don't loot the ones near my house, and I'll go out and I'll loot the ones and also break the ones that are further off. Okay, so for number 4 on our list, we have make a spear. Now, the tutorial little intro questline thing will tell you to make a club, which isn't the worst weapon in the game. You know, play what you want, who cares? But we want to make a spear because spears are super duper useful pretty much at any stage of the game until you get into that late game where you're just running through houses with shotguns and machine guns and stuff. But early and mid game, using that spear, we can go ahead and throw it at our enemies in order to keep them at a distance. It also has a farther reach with melee range, although I would recommend you mostly try to throw it as you can get more damage out of it that way. Aside from that, you always want to make 2 spears, because if you miss one, you don't want to end up in a situation where you suddenly don't have a weapon and you're running around in circles looking for it. So I always recommend that you make at least 2 spears. That way you have a backup one in case you miss the other. But hey, I mean, you could make 10 spears if that's what you want to do. At the end of the day, the more the merrier. Alrighty, so number 5 on our list is going to be do quests rather than just looting random houses. Now, instinctively, you may think the first thing we're going to want to do is go find a house, start looting it, maybe barricade it up, whatever. And you're going to then want to go from house to house and start looting things and looking for good items. And that's all fine and dandy if that's really the playstyle you want to do. But if you want to be efficient here and you want to level up as quickly as possible while also making money and getting bonus items, you're going to want to go ahead and go to the traders in order to pick up quests. These quests will give you a way to go to a specific destination. Maybe you're going to dig down. Maybe you're going to go find a hidden item inside a building. Maybe you just have to kill zombies in a building. I always try to take the ones that are relatively close to me because I don't have a vehicle when I'm first starting out. However, I don't like to take the digging ones because I think those take the longest. And aside from them taking a while, you can also get them in really, really jank spots, like underneath a road where you only have a stone shovel. You can't really break down through that road, so you then have to dig around and under it. It's just a pain. So I always recommend try to stay away from the treasure hunting ones where you have to go dig up the things. Always try to lean more towards the zombie killing or clear out a house or go find this piece of loot, or something along those lines. Those are always going to be faster, and you also get the XP for killing the zombies in that building, which adds up quite a bit over time. So that's why I like to lean towards those. So for number 6 on our list is going to be to always carry some amount of frames on you. We're talking about the little wooden frame boxes that allow you to build stuff. The reasoning for this is there are a lot of very useful things you can do with them that will save you tons and tons of time and effort. First off, you can basically do a Minecraft jump style where you kind of jump and place one underneath you, and then you can pillar up. So if you think, hey, you know, the loot's probably in the attic of this building, I've seen it before, then you can pillar up to the top where that attic is and go right on into it and grab the loot and then dip. You don't have to deal with everything else if you don't want to. It's also great if you're trying to make bridges between buildings. It's good and useful for blocking off zombies. You can put 2 frames down and upgrade the top frame in order to stay away from animals that are small. There's just tons and tons of useful things that frames can save you a lot of effort for just having with you. So I do always encourage people to carry some amount of frames. I usually try to carry like 20 to 50 on me at all times, but you know, however many tickles your fancy, go for it. So for number 7 here, we have look for tree stumps in order to get honey. Now, we're not talking about normal trees. So if you're like, where are the tree stumps? They're going to usually be in the forest or plains looking biomes. When you get there, you're going to be looking for these actual stumps. I usually don't go out of my way to find them. I kind of just keep an eye out as I'm exploring. But when you do find these, you're going to want to break them all the way down until they no longer exist, and they will give you a honey. Now, it can be used for food, but I would not recommend that. I would actually tell you, especially if you're playing on default settings, that you use that honey in order to get rid of the zombie infection. See, if you get bit, scratched, whatever in the game, you have a small chance in order to get infected, and once you are infected, you then will slowly start to turn into a zombie at an increasingly accelerating rate the longer you have it. So what I always encourage people to do is try to keep 1 honey on them at all times. This is because the honey will cure 5% of any infection. So if you have, 5.1%, it's not going to cure it all. So that's why I'm always saying carry it with you. That way, as soon as you get that infection and you see that little icon, you can go ahead and drink your honey and be on your way, no longer having to worry about turning into a zombie. Okay, so number 8 on our list is going to be just dig a trench. I know, it's very simple. It's very, very simple concept, but digging a trench is incredibly useful in this game. Now, do keep in mind, if you dig it too deep, you're going to need to create a ramp for the zombies to get out. Otherwise, they're going to dig through the ground underneath your base, and it could collapse on itself. So I usually try to dig a 2 deep by 2 wide trench, or a 2 deep by 1 wide if I'm just making a quick little starter base or something. And then I'll fill that with spikes, so as they fall in there, they're taking that spike damage. If you want to go the extra mile, you can make this as wide or as many layers deep as you'd like with as many spikes as you want. But do keep in mind, when you do only go 2 deep, there is a small chance that the zombies will be able to stand on that bottom spike and then jump off of that bottom spike into your base area. So like I said, I personally always recommend you do at least 2, but if you're willing to go the extra mile, make it 3 deep and make sure there's a ramp for them to get out. Okay, so tip number 9 is very, very important for all the new players out there. Now, the first 7th day you come across isn't too bad. You may have 8, 9, 10 zombies at most, something along those lines, usually if you're playing by yourself. However, the second one you come across is significantly more difficult than the first. You're probably going to have a couple hours of non-stop spawning zombies. I always recommend by this point in time, you try to start a horde base, especially for new players. Experienced players can still get away for up to the first 21 days without even having a horde base a lot of the times. But I always recommend that you try to get it by day 14 at the latest. Now, what is a horde base? A horde base could be a number of different things. You can look these up on YouTube. There are lots of tutorial videos. If you guys want me to make some for you, I'd be happy to do it. Just let me know in the comments. But otherwise, these are maze bases. These are bases that have like a drop down where the zombies get stuck in a pit. These are all sorts of different things that create a way for you to have an advantage during the night when you're fighting these zombies. The other reason this is important, aside from just dealing with the horde, is that when you die in your main base, if you choose to spawn near it, those zombies are going to run towards that main base and try to break in and destroy everything. You don't want to lose all that hard work you've put into it. You don't want to lose your foundries, your resources, all that stuff. So that's the other reason we're making a horde base, and we're going to have a spawn point there during the night as well if possible. You see, having that horde base is going to allow you to force the zombies to go to a different area, because it doesn't matter where you're at night. In case you didn't know, during a horde night, the zombies always know where you're at regardless of where you are. You could be 50 blocks underground, they'll still go directly to you. They have essentially a homing beacon on you, and they're going to do everything in their power to get to you and then kill you even after you die and respawn. So, like I said, always recommend build yourself a horde base. Not a complex topic. Usually just make a maze is the easiest one to get started with, or you can make a pit trap. You can look that up on YouTube. There's a whole bunch of different styles you can go with, but at the end of the day, it makes the horde night so much more easy to deal with, as you can deal with the zombies in a much more organized fashion. Alrighty, so here we are at number 10, and this tip is actually super duper useful no matter where you're at in your gameplay. But what it is to eat glass, in-game of course, in-game, please don't eat glass in real life, but eat glass in-game whenever you have too many afflictions or you're about to run out of food or water, as when you do die, you can then reset your health, your hunger, any afflictions you had, and you're basically just good to go. Now, there is a few ways to cheese this. This is up to you if you guys want to do this method or not. You can basically carry around 1 or 2 glass and then carry around a sleeping bag with you, and no matter where you're at in the world, if you happen to be low on health, freezing to death, overheating, whatever, just broke your leg, doesn't matter. Put the bag down, eat the glass, respawn, pick up your bag, go on your way. Problem solved. I know it's cheesy. You don't have to do this method if you don't want. I actually don't encourage new players to do it because it does kind of break the whole immersion aspect of the game, but it is just something to keep in mind that this is an option for you. Now, do remember, if you do like this video, do make sure to comment and like it down below, as it really helps put us in the algorithm and helps us to grow. So thank you first off for that. If you are interested in seeing more content on 7 Days to Die, I have tons of tips for advanced players, for intermediate. I have tons of content I'd love to do that's comedical or just informative. So do make sure to comment down below and like the video as well if that's something you also want to see, in order to let us know. Thanks so much for watching. Make sure to subscribe if you like the video, and we will see you next time.